interchangeable.
That's it. All right, you guys.
Good place to be.
Exactly. It's the only place to be. It's the only place you are.
Mhm.
There's no place else. All right. So this evening we have the pleasure of having Mr. Jack Roddy be our um, speaker and teacher. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Jack. This mic is all yours.
Thank you, Lynn. And thank you for being the admin tonight, right?
That's my job.
And you will bring up the passage that I'm going to work with tonight as we go to a passage. I know you can bring it up on your own. I've decided to work with a passage. I was inspired by Hakeem Hamza, who was John Mundy's guest on Sunday at 12 noon. Dove, I think you were there.
Yes.
Anyway, I was inspired by him. One of the things he said, he started to quote part of chapter 31, self-concept versus self. He started to quote, "I am the thing you made of me, and as you look at me, you are condemned for what I am." He quoted the first part of that, but it's a sentence within the self-concept versus self, which is the area of the text that I want to cover tonight.
All
Last
right.
week we did the message of the crucifixion. Tonight we're going to do chapter 31, the final vision, Roman numeral 5, self-concept versus self. Can you pull that up on your screen? It's page 656 in the text of the second edition. Lynn, oh, there you go. Okay.
All right. I forgot I was muted. There you go.
But what I would like to do is I would like to cover from page 656 at the top, Roman numeral 5, and then I'd like to cover over to at least page 660, where it ends right before Roman numeral 6, which isn't too much, but what we'll do is we'll use the format whereby we read a paragraph straight through. What I want to do, I don't want anybody, when you read, to stop in the middle of your reading and make a commentary. Because, you know, the editors that put all these paragraphs and Roman numerals and sentence numbers and paragraph numbers together, which is a very sophisticated way of putting this all in one big context. You know, we've got paragraph numbers, we've got sentence numbers, we've got Roman numerals for sections. This is very sophisticated. I don't know whether it was Judith Scutch and Ken Wapnick and Bill Thetford and Ellen Schuckman and who else might have been involved in that process. But when they took all the readings from Jesus to Helen, they eventually took much time into putting everything in the context that we now have it today. That was a very tedious job. So I don't want us to stop in the middle of a paragraph and make a comment. I want to respect the sacredness of the effort they put together to take Jesus's voice and put it in this form so that we read straight through a whole paragraph and any comments would come after the paragraph is read. It's just a format that I go by. So that's my rule in being a facilitator on ACIM Gather.
Well, it's you're the leader. It's your rule. So that's the way we will do it.
Well, let me ask you just one other thing.
Yeah.
As long as you're the reader, that's wonderful. But if you ask someone else to read, you know, each person reads as they wish to read. You know, like you can read the whole thing straight through. You can do anything you want. But if you ask someone else to read, it's not going to be the same thing.
Okay, now, Dove, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, as a rule for my facilitation, I don't want any of us who read.
No, I understand. If you read the whole thing for the whole hour, that's fine. I'll listen.
I don't want to do that. I want to share the reading.
No, I have never in my life done that. Okay, ever.
Well, let's try something new today. So let's just try it this way because there's no reason why not. This is Jack. This is his program. He asked it to be that way.
You know,
and
wait, Lynn. One person already left. there's only you and me left. I mean, if I'm going to listen to Jack, fine, but don't ask me to read. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And
We're cool with that.
Lynn, I just want to reiterate the reason why I want to do it that way. The editors that edited this great masterpiece that we read from, the editors took Jesus's words and put a lot of attention into forming it into paragraphs, forming it into sections, chapters, and because of that, I feel that it's to honor the editing and the voice of Jesus to read through the paragraph without stopping to editorialize.
Okay. I was brought up in the Course of Miracles with the following understanding, and I was told this like in 1978 by people who were there at the very beginning. There's two ways of reading the Course. They called it East Coast and West Coast. East Coast reading comments, West Coast reading just read. And it's that simple. I'm from the East Coast.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm gonna start the reading, and I love comments and sharing. The sharing after a paragraph is two ways. One, to have a greater understanding of what the message is in that paragraph, and two, the sharing of what you got from that paragraph or where you see yourself in that paragraph. So there's a personalized sharing, and then there's a contextual sharing where you want to get clear on the message of that paragraph. And so, yeah, sharing after each paragraph is wonderful. That's what we're here for. Okay, I'll start out, and then Lynn, who do we have? Sharon. Hi, Sharon. We have Lynn, Sharon, and anybody else?
I will read for sure.
I came late. What happened? Like what happened with the dove? I don't understand.
Nothing.
Well,
Nothing happened.
I was asking when we read tonight, Sharon, I was asking to read the paragraph all the way through before making any comments. That's all I was asking for. To read the paragraph through without, as opposed to editorializing while you're reading.
Okay.
And the reason I'm asking for that is I believe this is a sacred spiritual masterpiece. And I feel that the flow of the words and the feelings that we get from the words in the paragraph have meaning, there's something special about it. And I prefer that we read straight through rather than comment after each sentence or a couple sentences. That's all I'm asking for. So tonight I'm going to start the reading, and then we'll go to Lynn and maybe Sharon, if you want to read, you can read too. We're going to try to cover this entire Roman numeral 5, self-concept versus self. It's a very, this particular Roman numeral in chapter 31, to me, has a lot in its message. Chapter 31 is called the final vision, and the first part is the simplicity of salvation. So, and this is Roman numeral 5, self-concept versus self. Okay, here we go. The learning of the world is built upon a concept of the self adjusted to the world's reality. It fits it well. For this, an image is that suits a world of shadows and illusions. Here it walks at home, where what it sees is one with it. The building of a concept of the self is what the learning of the world is for. This is its purpose, that you come without a self and make one as you go along. And by the time you reach maturity, you have perfected it to meet the world at equal terms, at one with its demands. Now, that first paragraph, I'd like to make a couple comments on that myself, and anybody else can jump in too. But what it's really saying is, okay, you come into the world teaches you how to be. The illusion, the world, teaches you how to behave, teaches you how to use your ego. Or maybe it teaches you how to win or how to lose or how to be right or how to be wrong. So the world kind of teaches you how to be within the world with its purpose. You come without a self and you make one as you go along. Isn't that something? You make one as you go along. By the time you reach maturity, you have perfected it to meet the world on equal terms, at one with its demands. So it's kind of like saying, hey, when you come into the world's going to teach you how to be in the world and get along and get through. Any other comments?
Yeah, I was going to comment on this. This is really, really very cool and interesting. Of course, he's talking about the self-concept that we make up based on the stories that we tell ourselves or that the world tells us about ourselves. And so all of it is made up. And I love that he says, by the time you reach maturity, you have perfected it. Wow. I don't really consider it being perfected. I think it just becomes more and more confused as we go along until we start to understand what it's here for, what's going on. So by the time you reach maturity, you have perfected it to meet the world on equal terms. So that's what he's talking. It's not that we perfected our personality, but we've come to the place where we can actually negotiate in the world and do what the world asks us to do, and ask the world to do for us as well. So he's really just talking about how we built our personality, how we built ourselves.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great little paragraph to set up this particular Roman numeral 5 here. It's a great paragraph. Anybody else want to share on that? Okay, paragraph 2. Lynn, you want to read that?
Sure. Paragraph 2. A concept of the self is made by you. It bears no likeness to yourself at all. It is an idol made to take the place of your reality as Son of God. The concept of the self the world would teach is not the thing that it appears to be, for it is made to serve two purposes, but one of which the mind can recognize. The first presents the face of innocence, the aspect acted on. It is this face that smiles and charms and even seems to love. It searches for companions and looks at times with pity on the suffering and sometimes offers solace. It believes that it is good within an evil world.
Now, the biggest factor for me in that paragraph is, I'm a good person and the world is cruel and wicked, but I'm here and I'm going to be good anyway because that's who I am. And I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, it's like, I'm going to be a good person and the world is not good like me. In general, the world is not good like me, but I'm going to be good. So all this is part of the mask that the world is teaching us to wear. The first presents the face of innocence, the face that smiles and charms and even seems to love. So it's any other comments on that paragraph?
Yeah, it just is really beautiful for us to look at ourselves in this way and see how it is that we do it. Because, every single one of us does it every day. Because that's how we negotiate the world. And we can live with ourselves if we thought we were evil. And no matter how apparently evil we are seeing ourselves as innocent. And everybody else.
If you look at personalities and people, and pretty much most people think they're good, and the world is cruel, or the world is tough, or the world is evil, or whatever they want to call it. But most people make up an idol that they are good in a not so good world. Is what this paragraph is saying. It's an idol made to take the place of your reality as Son of God. Any other comments on that paragraph?
Sharon has her hand up.
Yeah, Sharon.
Oh, no, I agree with both of you. I think that it's hard to see how much we have in there, how much hatred is in our minds, because the way I see my mind is the ego makes me out to be a nice person, but underneath all of that is all the hatred. So yesterday I had like I just listened to this gentleman that was on John Mundy, and he was just so terrific for me because he basically was saying, honestly, we all hate and in the ego, you're just full of hate. Because let's say if I see someone I hate and I do still have judgments, so there you go, then I still have some of that in me. So I feel like this is a really good chapter and I like reading it. Because we are delusional when I'm delusional when I think I'm completely nice when I'm in the ego, because I'm not. Like, I'll say, well, I like the nice candidate, or I like this, or I like that. And it's just a protective mechanism, just so I won't look at what's there. That's all.
Yeah, very good, Sharon. I was at the Hakeem Hosma talk also.
I'm having trouble hearing, and I think it's me, not you, Jack. So it could be we're gonna get my ears tested because, oh, wait a minute, it's not up high enough. That's what it is. Okay. All right.
Okay, so that's paragraph 2. Paragraph 3, Sharon, you want to read paragraph 3?
Yeah.
I just played that recording of that Hakeem from yesterday. So the fact that you were just talking about Jack talked about that before you came in the room, Sharon.
Wasn't that fun?
How
I just thought
impactful
he was fabulous. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought he was great. He was so much being in the middle. He was very creative and
Yes.
very much in the middle of everything without anything being succinct or, yeah, I liked him very much.
What I loved about him was that the way he explained everything and how gentle he is and how truthfully he said, you can't just basically what I got from it, and I could be dead wrong, but the way I perceived all of it was that you cannot wake up right away. This is a process. There's too much hate usually. And there are some beings that do get up. I mean, I don't know who they are, but it's a process because of all this guilt. And that's something Ken would always say. So yeah, I can't wait to listen to it tonight because Dove sent it to me again. I just thought he was amazing.
Yeah, yes, he was.
I want to get in touch with the hate. Look, I still judge people and still feel like, I'm not getting triggered. I was saying that today as much as I did with the politicians because I was terrible 4 years ago. So I've gotten a lot better, but there's still triggers. And until there's none, I have work to do.
Yes.
I have work to do until I'm not here anymore. That's how I see it, because there's a lesson every minute.
Uh-huh. Okay, you want to read paragraph 3, Sharon?
This aspect can grow angry, for the world is wicked and unable to provide the love and shelter innocence deserves. And so this face is often wet with tears at the injustices the world accords to those who would be generous and good. This aspect never makes the first attack, but every day 100 little things make small assaults upon its innocence, provoking it to irritation and at last to open insult and abuse. So the world just gives us triggers to just, we are innocent, who we really are. The ego can never be innocent. The ego is hateful. And you have anything to add, Jack?
Yeah, as I was reading that, I was thinking, I watch the news. I don't pay any attention to it. The news never triggers me or never causes me to go out of my disposition. Whatever's going on in the news, there's nothing in there that I hold in a way that it rents space in my head. I mean, I do like to keep up with the world news, global news, but it doesn't bother me one bit, no matter what happens out there.
And you've been able to see now. I feel like at this point I'm 100% like better than I was last time, but I have a ways to go. And not only that, but for me, my guidance is basically you don't watch it because until you get a lot of this movement away from judgment about who's going to be good for our world and who isn't. It's interesting because course people are a little like more, what's the word? Definitive. Like Tara Brock and a lot of her friends were on a thing for social justice, and they absolutely want to save democracy. And here, I would say Tara Brock is awakened. I do feel she is, or at least as far as she can go. So, you can't do it wrong. But what I like to do, because see, I think with the Course in Miracles, it's so obvious. It tells us anything we see is us. And that's where the problem is, because we're hurting. ourselves.
By the way, a lot of leaders in the course community, like Marianne Williamson, say you go into action, get angry, follow your heart. Go for a
Yeah, it's
call.
not wrong. It's not wrong.
No,
But I don't want to
but-
be hateful to other beings because I love people and I have friends. Well, I only have 2 friends on the other side, but look, all I want for people is that they can get to this process because, I feel like it saved my life.
Okay, so out of that paragraph, I want to comment on sentence number 3 and 4. The world would be generous. It says who would be generous and good. This aspect never makes the first attack, but every day 100 little things make small assaults upon its innocence, provoking it to irritation and at last to open insult and abuse. So when you think you're the good guy and you believe in this innocence the world teaches you to hold on to, you can feel then like a victim, or you can feel like you're being assaulted on your innocence, provoking it to irritation and insult and abuse. This is part of what it's saying here in this paragraph.
Yeah, and what I see here is that, I mean, this happens to anyone if they get provoked enough, poked. But the fact is that the only reason that we're being poked is because we have unhealed guilt deep in our being that we haven't looked at. We haven't brought it up and looked at it. And so it's actually not poking us from out there, it's poking us from in here. It's ourself poking us and saying, here, look at this, look at this, look at this. And so, we start thinking that we're being a victim to all these things, but in reality, we're the center of it. It's actually coming from us.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
Yes. And if you think you're good and you're in a cruel world, you're setting yourself up for that insult and abuse. One thing Hakeem said yesterday, Sharon, he said, you do not need to be good. Now, when he said that, I was thinking, of course, of this particular section, but also when he said that, I was thinking of Mary Oliver. When Mary Oliver wrote the poem, The Wild Geese, she starts off in her poem and she says, you do not need to be good. You do not need to walk on your knees for 100 miles in the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue sky, are coming home again. And it goes on and on. But when he said you do not need to be good, it just reminded me of Mary Oliver and how great she is at bringing us home with her poetry. Okay, so paragraph 4, I'll go with this one since Dove's not going to read.
Okay.
Paragraph 4. The face of innocence, the concept of the self so proudly wears, can tolerate attack in self-defense, for it is not a well-known fact the world deals harshly with defenseless innocence. No one who makes a picture of himself omits this face, for he has need of it. The other side he does not want to see. Yet it is here the learning of the world has set its sights, for it is here the world's reality is set. To see it, to see to it, the idol lasts. So the idol being the mask that we make up as we go through the world that keeps us from our true natural self. Okay, that's a great little paragraph there.
Yeah, and I think the point is for us to look at ourselves and see where we're doing this and how we're doing it, because it's easy to see it when other people are doing it. But not and we have like so many examples in the world of what people that they call Karens that are out there pointing out everybody else's guilt while they're over here feeling innocent and help and like I wouldn't say a bad thing or do a bad thing, but these people are all bad, and you see it all the time. And what happens is if you see those, if I see those things, and maybe you don't, I don't know, if I see those things, I will tend to start getting on somebody's side and saying, oh, that's wrong. She shouldn't be saying that. These people are victims. This thing is going on. And so I go on my face of innocence where I attack her by making myself look like a better person. I'm a nice enough person to know she's bad, but
Yeah.
and to point it out to you.
And that's what Jesus is saying here. That's what we do. That's what we do. So the world attacks the deals harshly with defenseless innocence. You know, and the defenseless innocence is what we make up in those two parts that we read earlier. The first part was the innocence, right? So therefore, if you make up that you're this innocent person, you're going to feel attacked, and you're going to feel that the world is dealing cruelly with you. Pretty much what it's saying here. Any other comments on paragraph 4?
It goes on and on and on, because until you stop the cycle, you will continue to fall into that pointing the finger of guilt wherever you happen to look, just as long as it's away from me. So
yeah, and it's another reason for people to say, well, the world is not fair. You know, it's an unfair world. And so I'm a victim, or I'm not being treated fairly, but by golly, my church told me I just have to fight it and go through it, and I'm going to be okay. But the world is not fair. I mean, that's all in there too, you know. Okay, let's go to 5.
All right, I'll read 5.
5.
Yeah, I'll read 5. Okay. Beneath the face of innocence, there is a lesson that the concept of the self was made to teach. It is a lesson in a terrible displacement and a fear so devastating that the face that smiles above it must forever look away, lest it perceive the treachery it hides. The lesson teaches this, quote, I am the thing you made of me, and as you look on me, you stand condemned because of what I am. End of the quote. On this conception of the self, the world smiles with approval, for it guarantees the pathways of the world are safely kept, and those who walk on them will not escape.
Okay, this is the part, Sharon, where Hakeem alluded to this for just a moment. He alluded slightly, and he said, I am the thing you made of me, is what he said. He didn't do the whole piece. But the real core of that paragraph, where it says, I am the thing you made of me, and as you look on me, you stand condemned because of what I am. It's like, you know, the guilt that comes up, you know, my brother is guilty. Now he sees me as guilty. You know, you stand condemned because of what I am. You made me what I am by your projection. I made you what you are by my projection. You know, it's like saying that we're all a mirror image of each other with the projection of the guilt out there. But that's a great little line, that little line there. Go ahead.
The point that we're trying to make ourselves feel innocent by making everybody else guilty, and not looking at our own internal what we blame ourselves for. So, you know, and I can guarantee you that you cannot, it's impossible to hate another person and love yourself. You may think that you can, but really it's impossible, because the other person is yourself. And so whatever it is you're hating in that other person is a reflection of your own thought system. And it is conflict. You just can't do it. You think
well,
one
you know,
thing, you know, there.
One of the things I asked Hakeem yesterday in his talk, I asked him if he believes in the unconscious, there's not only guilt, but also self-hatred. And he agreed. And, you know, I learned that years ago. Self-hatred is a separate, unconscious, unhealed part of the unconscious, just like guilt is. Because when you look out and you see hate, all that is the projection of the unhealed self-hatred inside the unconscious of each person who's hating. As you just said, Lynn. So, whenever we see hate, that's unhealed self-hatred coming out from the unconscious of the person that's hating.
Yeah, and Jack, can I ask you, like, why separate them? I mean, aren't they both the same?
Okay, you know what? I learned to separate them for this reason. Many years ago, Marianne Williamson taught me that self-hatred is a separate phenomenon in the unconscious from guilt. She decided to separate them. Now, when I look at hate in the world, you could say it's part of guilt or a subheading from guilt, but self-hatred to me has its own life. And ever since Marianne taught that, I see the self-hatred as its own life. We all hate ourselves because we stole our independence away from God.
Yeah, we don't have freedom here. We're victims. We don't even know why we're here. All those reasons.
I like, in my own concept of my mind, I like having self-hatred as a separate unconscious entity from guilt. You can play it any way you want.
Well, whatever works. But here's what I think. The guilt, if you, like, the goal is not to believe in the world at all. Because if you still have any belief in the world, you're still in guilt.
Yes. That's right. Yeah.
So it has to chip away. It's like layers of chips, and you just have to be patient, I guess. I'm talking to myself, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the self-hatred that brings about that sense of guilt, because you cannot hate any of God's creations. If you,
Well, we
it's
don't think that way, though. We think we're these people and God's somewhere, not, that's what the ego thinks. We know
right,
better.
but in reality, you cannot hate one of God's creations.
Oh, God,
and
no.
not hate yourself.
But we don't, like, the way I see it is if you identify with the ego, you will always have fear and hate. If you even identified as the person, I guess, it's just you have to know you're formless.
Right. But the identification with the ego, I don't think that's just a given, because that's our nature here in this world. But the guilt that comes from the self-hatred, because we look at ourselves and we see, as lesson 93 says, that we're the home of evil, darkness, and sin.
Yeah.
If we think that we're the home of evil, darkness, and sin, then we're going to hate ourselves. And you can't, that's what I'm saying, is you cannot hate God's creation and be sane and be happy. So it's the coming to that point where I'm looking at that, and instead of hating it, just recognizing that it was, a tiny mad idea, and I'm not going to buy into it anymore and give it up. And then you don't have to feel guilty because you recognize nothing happened here. But if you
I
think
want to comment on this paragraph before we move on to the next paragraph. I just want to say that what this paragraph is doing, it's saying what earlier in the earlier paragraphs, it talked about the face of innocence. What this is saying here is this face of innocence is a terrible displacement and a fear so devastating that the face that smiles above it must forever look away, lest it perceive a treachery it hides. So underneath the face of innocence is this, hey, screw you, man, get out of my way. I don't want to, there's an anger underneath the face of innocence because of the way the world treats people, according to this face of innocence. Okay, let's go to 6. Sharon, you want to read 6?
Here is the central lesson that ensures your brother is condemned eternally. For what you are has now become his sin. For this is no forgiveness possible. No longer does it matter what he does, for your accusing finger points to him, unwavering and deadly in its aim. It points to you as well, but this is kept still deeper in the midst below the face of innocence. And in these shrouded vaults are all his sins and yours preserved and kept in darkness, where they cannot be perceived as errors, which the light would surely show. You can be neither blamed for what you are, nor can you change the things it makes you do. Your brother then is a symbol of your sins to you, but silently and yet with ceaseless urgency condemning still your brother for the hated things you are. You know, it's funny because it's a beautiful, beautiful poem. I mean, that's what I look at the courses like poetry. But you know, when you look at this, like, until this guilt, I mean, if I see anything outside of me, that's for me. Because if I don't like I have this idea, like I like everybody to be treated equal, or I like people to not suffer here, blah, blah, blah. And that's just the protective of the innocence from the ego. There has to be, because I don't like certain people still. And I'm just basically going to just work it through, because the more honest I get, the better it is for this mind. And I did think he was very helpful yesterday, because he couldn't be more honest about the ego.
Yeah, yes. By the way, this little paragraph here reminds me of a piece in the course that says, you think you hold against your brother what he has done to you. But what you really blame him for is what you did to him. It's not his past, but yours you hold against him. You lack faith in him because of what you were. You lack faith in them because of what you were. You know, that, I mean, that's another part of the course.
Yeah, explain, when you say, like, that's a great thing to just sit with, like, you know, contemplation.
Oh,
like,
yes. I sit, by the way, Sharon, I sit with it all the time. I sit
right,
with
you
it
have
all
to
the
sit
time.
with it, because, like, so when you slow down, it's basically saying that we can only see our past when we look at a brother, and all we're seeing is our own thoughts about how we felt about ourselves in the past, and then we're projecting it out on this entity that's just, you know, an innocent thing. So when they act poorly, they're acting out because we want them to in some level. It's like a whole show here, right? That's how, I guess. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, we're doing a lot of talking. I'm hoping we can move through this content and
I
move
think
on.
we're doing
Number
okay.
7.
I was just going to say really quickly,
Yeah.
remembering back at the beginning of this section, when he's talking about the ways step by step that we built this personality, this ego, this thing. And here he's talking about, here's what it is that you made.
Yeah.
And so it's good for us to look at it and recognize, oh, you know, I made that, but I can release it too. I can let it go as well. So.
Yeah. All right. Paragraph 7. Can you pull that up? I think it's my
Yes.
turn to read, right? Paragraph,
Did Sharon read? Yeah.
all
Yeah,
right.
she
This
did.
is another great paragraph. Watch this paragraph. Concepts are learned. They are not natural. Apart from learning, they do not exist. They are not given, so they must be made. Not one of them is true, and many come from feverish imaginations, hot with hatred and distortions born of fear. What is a concept but a thought to which its maker gives a meaning of his own? Concepts maintain the world, but they cannot be used to demonstrate the world is real. For all of them are made within the world, born in its shadow, growing in its ways, and finally maturing in its thought. They are ideas of idols painted with the brushes of the world, which cannot make a single picture representing truth. And then in the middle, it says concepts maintain the world. But none of them represent truth. They're all made up by us, mankind, humankind, and they cannot be used to demonstrate the world is real. So they're all made from the shadow side of the world, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's real obvious that concepts make the world because everything we see is a concept. You know, everything we think about is a concept. You know, we're not really seeing real things. We're just seeing the concept of a chair, the concept of a desk or a computer or another person across the country. Well, these are all concepts that none of them are true. None of that actually exists. It's just this scenery that we made in our thinking and gave it meanings. So, you know, that's, I mean, everything that we see is a concept. That's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. Okay, Lynn, you want to read 8?
Sure. A concept of the self is meaningless, For one here can see what it is for. Oh, excuse me. For
No.
no one here can see what it is for, and therefore cannot picture what it is. Yet is all learning that the world directs begun and ended with the single aim of teaching you this concept of yourself, that you will choose to follow this world's laws and never seek to go beyond its roads, nor realize the way you see yourself. Now must the Holy Spirit find a way to help you see this concept of the self must be undone, if any peace of mind is to be given to you. Nor can it be unlearned except by lessons aimed to teach that you are something else. For otherwise, you would be asked to make exchange of what you now believe for total loss of self, and greater terror would arise in you.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes the reason people leave the school, the course, is because it scares them. You mean I got to give up all the things I believe about myself? You know, I mean, it's like the people say, "Oh my God, I lost my identity." You know, I had to get away from that course. It was just taking too much away from me. The undoing. What is the atonement but the undoing of the ego, right? And this is an undoing. We're talking about an undoing here of the concept of the self. So it's big. It's big, and for some, you know, for a lot of us, it's not easy, and it can be threatening too to your identity. You know, this is who I am. This is what makes me real, right?
Yeah, but unless we ask the questions and come up with, what makes me think that I am a human? What makes me think that I am female? What makes me think that I am, American? What makes me think all these things? Whatever gave me those are all concepts. So every single one of those concepts has got to be looked at and ask, why is it true? Is this really what I am? And that's the only way they can drop away. They just aren't going to drop away just by me saying, I don't want to live in concepts anymore. I have to look at the concept and let go.
Yeah. Okay, paragraph 9, Sharon.
9 is okay. Thus are the Holy Spirit's lesson plans arranged in each steps, that though there be some lack of ease at times and some distress, there is no shattering of what was learned, but just a retranslation of what seems to be the evidence on its behalf. Let us consider then what proof there is that you are what your brother made of you. For even though you do not yet perceive that this is what you think, you surely learn by now that you behave as if it were. Does he react for you? And does he know exactly what would happen? Can he see the future, your future, and ordain it before it comes? What should you do in every circumstances? He must have made the world as well as you to have such prescience in the things to come. So, I mean, I think that he's poking right now and saying, like, what does your brother know? What do you know? It's just that we're duping ourselves is what it's basically saying.
Yes, yeah, we are.
In a difficult way, it's saying it too, by the way, because it's it can be hard for certain times for me to understand it, but I get the whole thing when I just read it from poetry. Because it's just not about the words, it's about just the freedom. And it is just saying that you're doing this to yourself continuously.
Well, in a way, there's also in here trying to fit in. I just want to be accepted. I want to belong. I want to fit in. So when we go there in our minds, what we're doing is we're accepting the illusion of the world.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, I like to belong. That's a human condition.
Yes.
I was recently in an improv group, and everybody was much younger than me, and I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to belong.
Oh.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, we all have that.
And,
as long as when you're in the personality, you're going to want that. Everybody wants that. But the real thing is we want our Father. We don't want to be here. I mean, we do and we don't.
Yeah, but in this concept of belonging, what we're doing here is we're saying let's break away from the world teaching us how to be in the world
Right.
and going to a higher place.
Yeah, and you just, for me, it's so good to do this stuff now. Because it just goes deeper.
Okay, to paragraph 10. Who's up? Is it my turn?
I think it's me. I
Oh,
think.
did I read that last one?
No, Sharon read that last one.
Okay, I guess it is you. Yeah.
Okay. That you are what your brother made of you seems most unlikely. Even if he did, who gave the face of innocence to you? Is this your contribution? Who is then the you who made it? And who is deceived by all your goodness and attacks it so? Let us forgive the concept's foolishness and merely think of this. There are two parts to what you think yourself to be. If one were generated by your brother, who was there to make the other? And from whom must something be kept hidden? If the world be evil, there is still no need to hide what you are made of. Who is there to see? And what but is attacked could need defense? So yeah, it's we think it seems like our brother is not that we're not what our brother made of us, but yet we compare ourselves to our brother and we look at our brother for a standard of how to be and what to be. So we are thinking that it's their fault I have to dress this way. It's their fault I have to, I can't color my hair pink and purple. No, that's changed. It's their fault that whatever it is that I think my brother is keeping me from doing that I want to do, it's my own perception that they're trying to stop me from being whole. So let's forget the concept's foolishness and merely think of this. There are two parts of what you think yourself to be. If one were generated by your brother, who was there to make the other? Yeah. And if I'm what the world made of me, which is what people think, I'm this way because of my circumstance. I'm this way because, my parents were like this. I'm this way because society didn't allow me to have this or that, or I had an accident and now my body's not right, or, we're blaming everything for our state of mind and thinking that, it's the world condemning us for something we have no control over. So, if that's possible, then where did I come from? Am I just the projection of an angry world?
Ultimately, Jesus is telling us to not be at the effect of the world of form. And an attack is not real unless you defend the attack or attack back. In other words, if somebody attacks you or seems to attack you in the illusion, it's not real unless you defend or reattack. Then you make it real. Otherwise, it's like the tree that fell in the forest. It didn't really make a sound if nobody heard it. The attack just dies out if nobody responds to the attack. Okay, paragraph 11. I'm going to move on. I noticed we only have 10 minutes left. Paragraph 11. Where are you going?
I was just looking to see how many more paragraphs there were.
All right, let's go back to 11.
That's okay.
Perhaps the reason why this concept must be kept in darkness is that in the light, the one who would not think is true is you. And what would happen to the world you see if all its underpinnings were removed? Your concept of the world depends on this concept of the self. And both would go if either one were ever raised to death. Oh, that's beautiful. And the Holy Spirit does not seek to throw you into panic, so he merely asks if just a little question might be raised. Excuse me for having a comment in the middle of that paragraph. I said we weren't going to do that tonight, and I did it. I said,
we won't hold it against you, Jack.
Oh, gee, thanks, Lynn. But I just want you to know I broke my rule. Okay. What a paragraph that is. What would happen to the world you see if all its underpinnings were removed? Your concept of the world depends on your concept of the self, and both would go if either one were raised to doubt. So the concept of the world and the self are totally connected together with the ego. And if one were raised to doubt, both would go, both would fall. Well, Sharon? Is Sharon
There
here?
are alternatives about the thing that you must be. You might, for instance, be the thing you choose to have your brother be. This shifts the concept of the self from what is wholly passive and at least makes way for active choice and some acknowledgement that interaction must have entered in. There is some understanding that you choose for both of you, and what he represents has meaning that was given it by you. It also shows some glimmering of sight into perception's law, that what you see reflects the state of the perceiver's mind. Yet, who was it that did the choosing first? If you are what you choose your brother be, alternatives were there to choose among, and someone must have first decided on the one to choose and let the other go. Well, it's a complicated one for me, except that I'm always talking to myself. There's nobody else out there. There's no brothers, because I'm the one that's actually at, pretty much it's my play. So, if I think somebody did something to me, I have to remember I'm the director, I'm the producer, I'm the actress, all of it. And when I own that, then what can I do? So it's just an easier way for me to say that there's a different alternative. That's all.
Yeah, it's like we're all making up our own movie of life.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, and it's happening. Again, we're not people, so it's consciousness moving through. We are the consciousness, and yeah, and but the thing that's very important for this mind is it's always about me. That way, why do I even have to understand anything? Like when I don't like my brother, what am I believing about them that I haven't looked at in myself yet?
That's right.
And that's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, what you say reflects the state of the perceiver's mind.
But I want to say this: if I'm not like present and in the right mind, I can be dumb in the wrong mind still, And some teachers will say, well, let that go because that's not you. But it's so good to know that you still have the guilt and be aware of it. Because you don't want this. Nobody wants this that knows what this really is, freedom.
Yeah, what is higher than all this is love and call for love. I mean, if we could perceive everything
that's
as
simple.
a call
Yeah.
for love,
Yeah.
and love,
It's
then
love or a call for love. Yeah.
we're above this.
Yeah. It's a play that doesn't mean anything either.
Okay, 13. Lynn, you want to read 13?
Sure. Although this step has gains, it does not yet approach a basic question. Something must have gone before these concepts of the self, and something must have done the learning which gave rise to them. Nor can this be explained by either view. The main advantage of the shifting to the second from the first is that you somehow entered in the choice by your decision. But this gain is paid in almost equal loss, for now you stand accused of guilt for what your brother is, and you must share his guilt because you chose it for him in the image of your own. While only he was treacherous before, now you must be condemned along with him. This is hilarious because Jesus is just saying, if you see your brother as guilty, then you stand accused of that as well, because to see guilt is to experience guilt. Guilt is is only seen through our experience. So, if I make my brother guilty, then I'm going to see myself as guilty too, but I'm going to put on that face of innocence that says, oh no, I'm good. But underneath that face of innocence, that guilt that is there with me is eating away at what I am. And so the only way really to address this is to remove that face of innocence and look at ourselves in this way that says, if would I accuse myself of this? If I accuse my brother of this, would I accuse myself of this? Because it is the same thing. I'm doing it myself.
You're the only one there.
Yeah.
It's like Dove often says, if you see it in your teacher, it's in you. Or if you see somebody who's really high up in the world or something, and if you say, oh wow, look at that, man, they have so much charisma, that's really you there that you're looking at. So I hear Dove often say, if you see it in your brother or your teacher, that's really in you as well, because that's what you're seeing. Okay, paragraph 14. The concept of the self has always been the great preoccupation of the world. And everyone believes that he must find the answer to the riddle of himself. Salvation can be seen as nothing more than the escape from concepts. It does not concern itself with content of the mind, but with the simple statement that it thinks. And what can think has choice, and can be shown that different thoughts have different consequence. So it can learn that everything it thinks reflects the deep confusion that it feels about how it was made and what it is. And vaguely does the concept of the self appear to answer what it does not know. By the way, this stuff is not easy to, when we read this, it's not always easy to understand everything.
Yeah, no, you have to personalize it and see it work how it works in your life. That's words. It's just words if you don't.
It's all words, but we're a mirror. Okay, everybody's the mirror of our mind. So it's an advantage too, because these are hard. The way that he wrote this, it can be hard to understand it, but the understanding is what the ego wants to do. We are the understanding. We are the freedom. So we don't have to, I think that the problem that I always have with the course is trying to, I don't know if he said that yesterday, but somebody said it. Trying to understand the course is not the way to go. It's application.
Yeah.
It really is application. And it's application a lot of the time. Like you live by yourself, Jack?
Yeah.
See, I don't. And when when you live, I got to tell you, when I lived by myself, I thought I was so much further along because I had nobody, you know what I mean? And then and then it all changed. My son moved here. I got married. So it's an advantage in some ways because, the mirror is the person. It's always, the course is really big on relationship. Everything here is relationship.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one and it's not, because we really get that it's always about me.
Yeah. And by the way, if we're going to play this game on time, it's 8 o'clock. We have to quit. Lynn, am I right? We have to stop at 8
Yes,
o'clock.
you're right, because I have another meeting at 8:30. So
But this is thank you everybody for reading and sharing.
Yeah, that was great. I love this chapter.
It's a great section, and I'm glad we got a chance to read it. So if you want me to, Lynn, I'll be happy to come back next week. I think I'm okay next week.
okay,
To lead if you want me to come back.
I would love it, and we can start back where we left
Well, it's
off.
good for both of it's good for us just to do this chat. I need a lot of this. So for me, it's wonderful.
Well, I like to be both a facilitator and a student, both, and participate on both sides of the equation. I like to do both. It helps me to grow.
Right.
So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. And hey, Dove, I hope you're not mad at me. I didn't mean to exclude you.
He excluded himself. He couldn't go play by the rules.
Yeah, we exclude ourselves. All right, you guys, I love you all.
You're the facilitator. I mean, what he did, oh, Dove.